Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and we are answering publicly posted questions from YouTube users. This YouTube user has been asked to be known as Mr. Incognito, so we shall honor the wishes. And I will read the question into the record here, and we'll answer it. Let's go. Let's say a client has a 100% legitimate adverse action that's been carried out due to his or her protected class. There is absolutely no doubt the claim to sue is viable. Pertaining to wrongful termination, if the individuals made written complaints to human resources, and in that documentation, the complaining individual wrote their complaints in a semi-aggressive, abrasive, fed-up manner, can the defense use this to prevent the plaintiff from winning a suit? Let's say the written docs were written as a result of ultimately being pissed off and angry due to the manner in which they were treated. Does the unlawful treatment supersede any abrasive tone in written form to HR, or does the defense have a leg to stand on, arguing the reason for termination was the abrasive tone of the emails or the complaints? Okay. So one of the classics, we'll give you the simplest one. Person comes in, we'll call it, as you kind of mentioned here, the 100% legitimate claim, right? The strong employment claim. They come into the office and they say, hey, I've got a very strong employment claim. Here it is. And you look at it and you say, that is very strong. I would like to represent you. And then the person goes on to say, okay, but I got to tell you something. I was terminated for punching my boss because he did these things to me. Well, that case just got really hard. Much harder than it had to be, right? This is common, right? This happens a lot. Is the case invalidated? No. Are the things that were done up to and before the termination no longer claims? No, they are still claims. Is the termination going to be viewed as retaliatory? Probably not. Probably not. You can't punch people. It's that simple, right? That termination, the employer had no choice. And they're going to say, hey, we had no choice. We had no choice. We were gonna do everything right. We were gonna investigate. We were gonna look into this. We were gonna be saints here. We promise you, Judge. We promise. But this complainant, took it in his own hands. He came for the manager with violence. He woke up and chose violence. Right? And yeah, that's gonna be that termination is not gonna be viewed as retaliatory. It's going to be viewed as very likely just procedural. Just, oh, yep, they had to. Now, I know that's not your hypothetical. I'm giving a simpler version of your hypothetical, right, where we have the physical striking of a manager. We're going to go one step further, a little bit less, or simpler, depending on your point of view. Very common for somebody to have a very strong, legitimate claim, come in and say, hey, I want to hire you. We say, great, this does indeed look like a strong and legitimate claim. And they say, okay, but I was fired because I told them I was going to blow the place up, or I was going to come in and shoot everybody, or I was going to kill myself. Once again, that termination is probably going to be completely legal. And you might say, Vince, how can they say that if they're going to kill themselves? Isn't that different than they're going to blow the place up or come in and shoot it up? It is. But if you have aggressive language paired with threats of self-harm, generally people do view that as just aggressive in total. Like you might, the colloquial phrase would be like kamikaze the office and stuff like that. And is that right and good? No, I don't think that is. That's not how we should respond to suicidal ideation. But that is, in fact, how many people do respond to suicidal ideation, because humans are imperfect. And yeah, that's going to be muddy waters, and it's going to be a heck of a fight. Again, everything that happened earlier, the discrimination that went on, or the sexual harassment, whatever it was, that gave rise to the claim, will still be viable, but the case will be much, much harder. Now we'll get to your actual hypothetical, Mr. Incognito. What you're saying here is that the person was angry, pissed off, and abrasive and aggressive. And you're asking, would that let the employer get away with termination. And I'm going to tell you, it's a vast expanse of gray. It's a sliding scale. We don't know. There's some level of aggression and abrasive behavior that's going to cause a judge or jury to look at it and say, yeah, I can see the termination. Again, the original claims are still going to be valid, but the retaliation, the termination, these, at some point, the language can be aggressive enough that the judge or the jury, the finder of fact, the arbitrator, whoever it is, can look at that and just say, yeah, I don't know. I think you were really wronged, but I don't like you anymore because you say scary things. And I think maybe the employer was okay to fire you. Is that going to happen all the time? No. Do I know exactly at what point, what level of aggression that's going to happen? No. It's going to be different from jury to jury, judge to judge, arbitrator to arbitrator. Each of them is going to have a different line, right? Like I have a fairly high level of tolerance for aggressive language. So when people say things like, I ought to mess you up, what I hear is, I'm angry. I will be frank with you, though. Most human beings who didn't work in bars for a decade hear, I ought to mess you up, and hear, credible threat of violence. Got to fire you for that, right? That's no question about that. That's a credible threat of violence. So, different people have different thoughts and different points of how aggressive language is, where it's going to start to heavily degrade the claim. And it will always make things more difficult, make settlement valuations lower, because the employer will be more confident, potentially, that they can make the plaintiff look bad and gain advantage through that, right? It's generally, the more aggressive a plaintiff's communications are with the employer, the more work the attorneys are going to have to do, the more risk has been introduced to the case, and the lower settlement values, or even verdict values, award values could end up being, because you're going to be losing kind of the finder of fact, the judge, the jury from your side to some extent. That becomes a risk, and that's going to impact everything. It's kind of like a trickle down across the board. It's just going to add a lot of uncertainty to things. So I hope this is helpful, Mr. Incognito. If it was, like and subscribe. That helps me to help more people just like you. And good luck.